Hello, everybody. Welcome to Untethered.tv. I'm your host and founder, Rob Woodbridge, if you didn't know that already. You know why you're here. You're coming here to hear, to listen, to learn from the guys who are actually out there paving the way in the mobile industry. They're creating things that you don't even know you need yet, but you will. At one point, you will probably be using a single or many products of the folks that I've talked to over the years on Untethered.tv. Today, repeat guest, best thing ever, means that they're doing well, that they're still around. Today I've got Gabor Vida, who is the co-founder of Teknision. They have a great project we're going to get to, a great product that we're going to get to on Kickstarter, and that's what we're going to be focusing on here. But I wanted to draw your attention to the interview that I did with Gabor last April 2011, right around the launch of the playbook. Teknision and Gabor were instrumental in getting the playbook out to market. Because they built the UI around that beautiful UI for the playbook for RIM. And it is my absolute pleasure to have Gabor back here to talk about Chameleon. Another layer on top of Android? We're going to get into this, but Gabor, man, thanks for doing this again. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you very much. It's awesome to be back on.
So I should say as well that Gabor is Ottawa-based guy. Teknision is an Ottawa, Canada-based company, which obviously goes to the very top of everything. It supersedes everything because I am, as they say, a very proud Canadian and very proud of our technology startup and mobile community here in Ottawa. And Gabor and Teknision are right in the middle of it. Actually comments on it as well at weareembedded.com. So much going on, man. But before we dive into this Chameleon piece, which is really what we're going to talk about, what is going on at Teknision? Talk about Teknision. Who are you? What right do you have to be building this user interface on top of Android?
Sure. So Teknision is a design an interface design and development company. We focus on experiences for mobile devices and embedded screens. So basically anything that has a screen that you can interact with, we want to create an interface for it. We shortly after the work that we did on Playbook, we got involved with Texas Instruments actually, and that was kind of the beginning of Chameleon, where they said, we've got all this technology that we want to put into tablets. What kind of experiences can you create with it? And it was fun. It was interesting because it was a lot of sitting around and literally saying, wow, what could this do?
You see, that's what's so cool about this space is that, the big guys like TI, like everybody, are trying to figure out what can they do in here because they realize the disruptive nature of what's going on, especially as we migrate from traditional desktops onto these tablet environments, and then beyond that onto this just flat, stupid, single-purpose screens attached to the cloud. Right? Am I wrong there?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely, exactly, and I think it's really difficult for them to make something different, something unique, something that that really keeps brand awareness alive, inside of consumers' heads. That's a giant challenge. I think, in fact, it's a bigger challenge in tablets than it is in phones. I think the reason why, this is kind of my theory, is the carriers, right? So you buy your phone from carriers, right? Or at least you do in North America, and which means that you're on an upgrade path. You're going to get a new phone in 2 years or however long. So by the time you're at the end of that upgrade, you're looking at what else can I get, and you almost don't have much loyalty because you know that you're going to get something new 2 years after that anyway. So you almost want to try new things out, jump around, and all of that. Tablets, however, aren't bought that way. They're not bought through carriers on a plan or anything like that. You go into your Best Buy or whatever, and you have a bunch of tablets in front of you, and you have Playbook, you have the iPad, and then you have a dozen Android tablets. And why choose one over the other? That was one of the big questions we wanted to answer. Because, like I said, Texas Instruments said, here's a bunch of technology, everything from streaming Wi-Fi wirelessly to really high definition user awareness, or face recognition, essentially. And we looked at what other people did in the past in terms of, well, it's the reference demos is what they're looking at. And a lot of them were just focused on really fancy animations and just making it look really nice to show off at a trade show. And we thought, well, hold on, let's actually solve a problem here. You know, I would
What is
rather
that?
do something.
Actually solve a problem?
Yeah, you know, let's do something that somebody can look at and say, not only is it cool, but I would buy
Yeah.
that tomorrow.
I'd use it.
You know, yeah, exactly, exactly. Too many times when you're creating a demo for let's say a trade show purpose, because really Chameleon was built to be debuted. They made a soft kind of splash at the Consumer Electronics Show, but its big kind of coming out party was at Mobile World Congress, and so it was a technology demo, you know. But most of those are flashy but useless. And I wanted to create something flashy but useful, you know. And then after that, it became so obvious that it was useful that we thought, well, why don't we actually spin this out into a product? There's certain pieces of it that made sense as a technology demo. Those don't work as a product, so we pull those out. But the core idea behind it, let's spin that out as a product. So that's what we're doing.
And this is obviously, you know, in response, you know, as you said, to quite a demand for this. But you know, when I look at these things, I think about all of the layers on top of something like Windows Phone in the early days. You know, I've been very vocal about the way that Android is going down this road, which is fragmentation, and multiple screen sizes and multiple processing power capabilities and input mechanisms. And it's like, do they not know the lesson that Microsoft just went through? Microsoft was a laughing stock of mobile today because they went down this path without control. Now Microsoft has gone back to control. But the user experience was terrible on Windows Phone, right? We both agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And all of a sudden, so Android went down this path, and now we're seeing the same. It's history repeating itself. It's people trying to create great interfaces around, you know, early on in Android's life, it was a dog. I mean, it was terrible UI. Google didn't get UI. It's getting much better.
Right.
But still, I mean, when you compare what you're doing with Chameleon to what the actual Android UI is, it's night and day. One is beautiful and elegant and effective and useful, and the other one is a bunch of engineers putting together a bunch of icons and thinking that this is UI. So are we in danger of going down, before we get into Chameleon, are we in danger of going down this path? Is Android in danger of going down this path that Microsoft went down, in your opinion?
Well, you know, when we first got into Android development, we came from an iOS background. We created the playbook, you know, which had a certain kind of design aesthetic behind it, and a certain. I mean, designing a tablet OS from scratch, you have to start with mental models and understanding, getting the user to understand where things live and making it simple, and then jumping into the Android universe. At first, I found it very confusing. And even today, I kind of feel like it's not done. You know, it's like Google created an operating system and that has a bunch of good ideas and gave them out to you and said, well, let's see what you can do with this. You know,
good start. You mean it's like it's a good start.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, Chameleon is based exactly on that. We grabbed a whole bunch of tablets. You turn them on, what's the first thing that you see? You see a home screen, right? And that's one of the major immediate visual differences between Android and, say, iOS. iOS displays, here's a bunch of apps. Android displays, here's a blank canvas, you know, which immediately is pretty blank and boring, you know, but it makes sense in that it's a placeholder for something valuable. But the tools that you get to fill that placeholder with valuable things aren't great. You know, it's widgets. You stick widgets on there, but widgets are created in silos. They're, you know, if I create a widget, I don't care about anybody else creating widgets, so I'm going to make mine look great, which will make it look like crap next to yours. You know, so the entire process of creating a meaningful instant-on dashboard it's almost more work than it's worth.
Now, let me like widgets. It's funny because everybody went with widgets. I mean, Yahoo widgets on TVs, and even Apple has them. You know, weather widgets, and I never use this stuff. It's just cumbersome. It's
Right.
you know, we live in a browser-based world today on the desktop, and we live in an app-based world. But our widgets, and look at Windows 8, it's all widgetized, right? The front screen. Is it lazy UI? Is it brilliant UI? Is it effective UI? I mean, because I tend to think that leaving it to our own, the average consumer's, level of knowledge about this is like they'll leave the default, right? And then they'll explore. So is that effective UI development?
Well, first of all, I was never a big fan of widgets, and
they suck.
I'm not a fan of them. You know, I mean, although Chameleon, if you look at it, it's just a bunch of widgets. You know, but I'm not a fan of widgets as they are right now. I kind of look at it as no matter what kind of device you have, there's a certain ritual that you follow every day, right? You know, you wake up in the morning, you launch 3 or 4 applications in the same order every single morning, right? So obviously, there's a certain set of information that you want to access all the time. It's just that in most cases, you launch an app, you get your information, you come back to the app launcher, you launch a different app. So it's this in and out kind of one chunk at a time process. And the thinking is that if you're going to show me a home screen, if you're going to give me an empty palette, at least fill it with the stuff that I find interesting. But widgets as they are right now do not do that elegantly, and it's not obvious how to do that.
No, they don't. And I think that's the big challenge here in UI is that the elegance of the iPhone, that first experience that you have, the simple touch, the one button, the slide on, the things that your 3-year-old can understand, the natural progression that operating system has gone through from just icons into folders and the simplicity around that. I think is a great tale in UI, and trying to do too much at the first blush will I guess confuse consumers. And then there's a fine line though. It's so funny because it's like, oh, this is beautiful, it's elegant, it's simple, it's so beautiful. Oh my God, this is great. To holy Christ, no folders? How do I organize? Jesus, it's like it flips right away, right very quickly around that. And then it's like a backlash against the simplicity that it once was, and now you have to double tap, and it's multi-threading and folders, and it gets confusing for the average user again. So UI is so subjective, but that's why something like Chameleon, right, where you're adding a layer of knowledge, your knowledge, and simplicity around it, is that I think is very important. And I have always, from the day that I got my first Windows phone, it was an compact iPad Windows phone, have looked for the perfect home screen, right? I don't know about you, but that's been the quest, right?
Right.
And I don't jailbreak my iPhone, so I'm stuck with what I've got. But it is, I've always had that, like, what is the perfect home screen? I download apps after apps after apps to be able to do that on the Windows system. And that's what this is. It's the perfect home screen. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of the video that you made so that people can get a sense of what it is. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I just want to, this is what Chameleon is. We're going to come back with Gabor, and we're going to talk about Chameleon. We're going to talk about the reasons behind it. We're going to talk about the process around Kickstarter, and we're going to talk about what he hopes, what this aspires to and beyond, and how to make money off of this. So I'm going to play this in theory. Listen to this. Yeah, it's always in theory. Listen to this and or watch this if you're watching, and then we'll be right back with in about a minute or so with Gabor. Here we go. In theory.
Hey Kickstarters, we love Android. We love our phones and our tablets, and we take them everywhere. But we noticed something. We noticed that we launch applications in groups. For example, in the morning, I launch mail and weather, maybe something else. But I repeat that throughout the day. I'll launch groups of applications depending on the time and situation. The content from these groups, that's what should be on your home screens. But looking at Android home screens leaves a lot to be desired. So introducing Chameleon, the home screen designed to fit your lifestyle. For example, in the morning, your tablet can be set to display news, schedule, weather, social feeds, and email. Chameleon lets you create multiple home screens with your own layout, giving you the most relevant information you want, when you want it. So whenever you unlock your device, you're presented with the home screen that is immediately valuable to you. Chameleon home screens can be set based on GPS location, Wi-Fi networks, or time ranges, giving you the ability to set which home screen is most relevant for the situation. Chameleon can recognize when you're in your office and present a work home screen with things like email inbox, tasks, calendar, and your latest documents. Later in the evening, when you sit down to relax, Chameleon can recognize your home network and display an entertainment home screen with things like news, movies, photos, and social media. If you want to switch dashboards, no problem. Just swipe left or right, and accessing your full app launcher is just a tap away.
The idea here, I mean, Gabor, you couldn't hear that, but it was your video. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it. Heard it once or twice. But
a few times.
When I see something like that, and for those of you who are listening to this and you just heard the audio and you didn't get a chance to see it, go. I'll send you the link in a second, but go and take a look at this video, because this is exactly what I would look for in an application launcher as a home screen. It is so effective. It is so seamless, and it is so tied into your life. What is it, why go through this process? Like, you're trying to launch on Kickstarter. You've launched on Kickstarter. But talk about the process of coming up with that seamless, because mobile and these tablets are so, you can do anything. How did you build this out? How did you decide what features you wanted to put into this thing, or are going to go into this thing?
Right. So we started with this idea that you launch the same applications every day. And then talk to our staff or friends, and just to make sure that the little ritual launching theory holds true. And we quickly realized that, yeah, it's true. I mean, we don't just check our mail. Once we check our mail, we check 2 or 3 other things right after, and we do that throughout the whole day. But depending on where you are and what time of day it is, what you launch in little groups to get your data feed may be different. You may focus on Twitter more when you're not at work, or something like that. I don't know. So that gave the idea that, well, maybe more than one dashboard would be important. So that you could say, here's my setup for the morning. Here's the maybe news and weather and a little bit of email, a little bit of Twitter, but maybe more focused on news. And then maybe I want another dashboard for work that's a lot more. I could put up. Maybe I have 3 Twitter accounts that I use and that I monitor. In fact, I do. So I might want to put up all 3 of those as individual kind of streams that I can look at and use. All of these things they're almost desktop functionality that we're bringing to the dashboard, and then the little magic layer we wanted to add on top of that is, why not automatically bring up the right dashboard at the right time, so that when I pick up my tablet and turn it on, it's already there. If I turn it on while I'm at work, I get my work dashboard. When it's at home, I get my home. I could set it to different times, different locations, whatever. Just as long as soon as I turn on my tablet, it's immediately valuable, immediately relevant to what I'm trying to do. That's the big goal.
Well, and it makes sense because of all of the things that we have at our disposal with these tablets. And as you were talking, I was pulling up the screens that are on the Kickstarter site, and it's kind of like, I'm embedded with my iPad. I mean, it's a part of me. It's an extension. Something like this, though, is enough to make me start to look at a tablet on the Android platform. I've never felt that way about Android before, about going and taking a look at it. But this is contextualized and relevant to me, and it's cool enough. So is that the hope here, that what you're doing is you're creating you're helping organizations who are building these tablets, helping companies that are building these tablets, put that desire layer on top of Android. Because when you do go to Best Buy, as we said before, you have tablets, and then you have an iPad, right?
Right.
And if you talk to anybody today, people are thinking like they have named, like Kleenex, facial tissue. They have named all tablets iPad. Right? So they've lumped it all in, but there are black tablets, and then there's the iPad, right?
Right.
So is that the whole goal, is to create the desire layer on top of these other tablets, that all of a sudden there is a desire to have something other than an iPad?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard it said that there really is no tablet market. There's just an iPad market,
Yeah.
But that said, there was, I think 30 million tablets shipped last year, projected to be even more than that this year. So we're talking a decent sized market. If I can capture even 10% of that market, I'd be quite happy. But that's a market that has its problems. It's up against this giant behemoth, this category definer. So how do you compete? And far too often, most companies, because they're hardware companies and they compete on hardware, it's what they understand. They say, I've got a quad core, this and that, with 15 billion pixels and size and fastness and speedy things. People don't care about that. They really don't. They can't tell one against the other, and especially when performance is down to barely perceivable differences. What difference does it make in that? The only real differentiating factor is the user experience. That's it. But far too often, I find that in order to differentiate the user experience on at least tablets, it's focused on making things 3D. If it can spin in 3D space, then that's really cool. What we tried to do is bring a layer of elegance, bring a layer of tranquility, actually, and value. Because it seems to me that yes, when you're making a purchasing decision, you may consider the whiz-bang factor, but once you've bought a tablet, and if it has something like Chameleon in it, that is providing you with value every single day, you're not going to leave that brand. You're not going to buy something else that doesn't have it, because it's not providing you daily value.
Do you think that this becomes a very competitive space for these layers on top of Android? I mean, we saw Amazon do it with their Fire. They basically obfuscated Android, didn't they? Knocked out the Android store, put in their own, obviously, and created a lot of buzz around this. And now Android, or the Kindle Fire, shot up out of the ranks at Christmas and then has been kind of obscure since, right? It hasn't really. I don't think it's materialized as a real threat in this space. But I mean, Amazon is absolutely creating the next window into retail through this. So it's a long-term play. But do you think that that's going to be obviously a coming trend, is that layer on top of these operating systems customized to the tablet and to the manufacturer?
Well, I think it kind of has to be. We were talking a little bit about Android as an operating system. How I don't feel it's finished yet, and because it's not finished yet, they've kind of left it for other people to finish.
But on that, like, what happens when if they can finish it? Ice Cream Sandwich was a leap ahead, and every time that they do a release, it's a leap ahead. They've started to think about UI and experience. But what happens when it does get finished? Does that worry you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's a bit of a catch-22 for them, isn't it? Because now that they have Motorola, they are a hardware manufacturer, but before that they weren't, right? So they were reliant on hardware manufacturers, and the hardware manufacturers were seeing it as, well, I need to change the UI, I need to tweak the UI so that I can differentiate myself. And if Android says, no, you can't do that anymore, and we're bringing out our Motorola devices that are our blessed devices, there's going to be a bit of fight there. And really, what are we talking about here? We're talking Android as an operating system, and I believe any operating system is simply a gateway to applications. That's all it is. So is there even room for another operating system? I don't know, but as long as it runs applications, then sure there is, absolutely. As long as it runs existing applications, sure there is.
I'm with you on this. Is that I think that I think very clearly that if Google wants to compete in this space with Android, they're going to have to start to put some guidelines in a little bit, enforce guidelines a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And it isn't about, I believe, right? It's not about being on as many devices as you can possibly be on, because we've proven this, is that Android at this point is 51% or 52% of all smartphone operating systems run Android, but 80 or 90%, close to 90% of the revenue is generated through Apple's iOS, right? So which side would you rather be on? If I think that if Android can turn on the revenue at 52%, do it. But what we're seeing right now is, the near term is that iOS, smaller market share, bigger revenue share, biggest revenue share. So I wonder if we're just going to transition away. Like you talk about Google as a brand and Apple as a brand. There are people out there that want to own a Google phone. It was evident because they spent $600 or $700 on the first Google phone. Right. So whether or not they keep Motorola as the hardware manufacturing side of Motorola, do you think that we're moving towards that where, listen, Google is going to look at this and say, you know what, we're going to have to own this piece. It was the reason that RIM, succeeded when they did. It's the reason that Apple is succeeding right now because of the iPhone creating that experience. Do you think that Google does that at some point and just says, look, as we're talking about, you know what, we're sorry.
Yeah.
There's an open source version, but now we're going to do this. Do you think that happens?
To a certain extent, I think they have to. If you look at Apple, let's look at Apple and RIM, right? They're the only two companies I can think of that own user experience from hardware, packaging, software, OS, the whole bit. And arguably those two user experiences are better than Android. They're more cohesive. They're more polished. They feel better. So just plainly on a user experience level, I think there needs to be some more control. If the user experience wasn't broken, there wouldn't be an opportunity for something like Chameleon. So something's broken. Right?
And they have to do it. They have to do it quickly, right? This is a very competitive space, and anything that they release today, like ice cream sandwich has been out for a while, but some operators are just getting around to updating that today because they've looked at the impact and on their network and making sure that that it's safe, secure, and they've done all their internal QA. So anything that they release today is going to take months and months and months to roll out, and then a year to be dominant. It's the same issue that RIM has right now with operating the Blackberry OS 10, right? Is that even if they launch on time, right now, say they launch in the fall, which my inclination is probably not the fall, maybe January or February is what we're hearing in rumors, you're talking about an 18-month lag before it becomes the dominant operating system for upgrades and hardware that can't support it and apps that won't support it. Like, we're talking 2 years from now before that operating system becomes relevant, and I think that's the big challenge here with Android and not controlling that launch and release cycle for on the hardware. Apple, when they launch an iPhone and a new version of iOS, it's the next day that it has an impact, right? It's like 88 million people are now using iOS 4, right? Yeah. The next day. Yeah. It's not a rollout issue. So it's a very hard thing to compete with, and I mean, it's a struggle, especially when you've got this industry, which is a big industry to begin with, and it's everybody's fighting for the same things. And
yeah, I think there's in so many ways there's hurdles to overcome. I mean, luckily, wherever there's problems, there's opportunities, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
But even just today, I was looking at this little test application that we send out to people just for our own purposes, kind of collecting information, saying, okay, this person's running this type of tablet with this type of operating system. They in this language at this size with this resolution. No iOS developer has to worry about that. No. No Blackberry developer has to worry about that, right? What we do, we have to make sure that Chameleon works for the majority of the users. I don't even know what the majority means right now. That's why we're collecting this information, right? But it's wide, it's big, and there's a lot of variables there. So it's like an added layer of difficulty for an application developer to actually create something meaningful. And I'm sure a lot of them, to a certain extent, have to just say, no, it only works on this form factor, at this size, at this speed.
Yeah, it only works on these 9 phones instead of the possible 200, right? And
exactly.
But you're not in that. You don't have that luxury with this thing, especially. I mean, I'd say that the tablet market, a little bit more constrained than the smartphone market. But if you're going to move it into the smartphone market, then and there's no reason why you wouldn't. Then all of a sudden you are in that at the mercy of every single new device that's released, and that's a big freaking challenge, man. That is a big challenge.
Yeah.
We've all seen that great picture where it said, what fragmentation issue, and it has like 400 phones on a table, right? Android phones on a table, and I used to think it was difficult back in the day to just build for IE and Netscape, in the web days. Detect browser type and screen resolution. That's all we had to do.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, even the notion of a tablet is difficult to get across, because we have people who are saying, well, I've got the Galaxy Note, it's got the same
pen input,
but it's a phone.
Yeah.
So I think that really there isn't a smartphone and tablet kind of market. I think it's a gradient in between. I think it's just a bunch of different form factors. That's all it is. And some of them can make phone calls.
Like as an afterthought, the greatest thing, still the killer feature of all these things is that you can talk to anybody, voice to voice, around the world at any point in time, from wherever you are to wherever they are.
Right.
All right, let's talk about this Chameleon. Let's talk about what you're doing now with Kickstarter. I'm gonna pull it up. I mean, you are trying to raise money through Kickstarter to be able to build this out. You've today, which is end of May, third week of May, we're talking about $31,599 raised on a goal of $50,000. 20 days to go, 3,416 backers. Obviously, there's a demand for this because people are putting their own money into this, and so talk about. I mean, once you get that, once you close this in 20 days, you hit your 50 grand. What do you do with this then? That's not enough really to get the product out the door, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, that's really that's a small fraction of the cost of developing the product. That's in fact a small fraction of the amount of money that we've already put into the product to get it to the point where we can show it off on Kickstarter. Really, the purpose behind that was a couple of things. It was kind of market validation. The thing I love about Kickstarter is while it's shown as kind of like a fundraising engine, it's pre-sales. That's all it is. It's people that, I mean, we have the $1 mojo, thank you very much, you're a nice guy kind of pledge, but everything after that is you are purchasing a product, So that allows ideas to kind of stand on their own and say, and the market to say, yes, I would buy that. In fact, I would buy that before it's even ready. That's a pretty powerful validation of the idea, but it's also a pretty amazing way to start building a snowball of momentum behind a product even before it really launches.
And well, but obviously with 3,500 people, you've got 100 and something comments on this saying, yes, please, I'll buy it. I'm in. That's got to be, it's got to be a clear sign that there is that, there's opportunity here for this, and how far advanced you are in the development of this shows that it's not an easy thing to do. You need your expertise. You need what it is that you bring to the table. Having already designed, the credibility is in the fact that you've already designed a full-fledged UI, UX layer on top of an operating system that is in deployment, whether or not you consider 2 or 3 million devices deployment. I do. I do. So you've got that experience. You've built that. You're embedded inside of QNX as you were building out the operating system layer for the playbook. So there's credibility there. what was it like with the Kickstarter experience to do this? Like, you know, you're in Canada, but what was it like? You know, why go Kickstarter? Was it just for awareness as a test, or was there something bigger? Did you kind of hope that it would be like you know, these stories here, $10 million down and off to like Maui forever?
Yeah. I've supported a bunch of projects on Kickstarter before, and there's some amazing success stories. You know, companies that are trying to raise 200,000 end up with $10 million. You know, something mad like that, and they raise it in a month or two. So there was that. There was that kind of, can we do this? It was this big, hairy, audacious goal that we wanted to do. Yep. You know. The other thing too is that the process of creating something for Kickstarter is really interesting because we scripted and shot the video entirely in house, and that in itself is this. It's like a marketing activity. It's a PR activity. Just kind of how do you take this value and not just talk about it, but actually show it, and show it in a way in which the way that you show it is as sexy or is on brand as the product itself. You know, so all of that was a really good exercise for us. And Kickstarter is just something we're all big fans of. And sure, there's a giant carrot there, you know, because it's unknown amount. You know, I mean, we picked $50,000. It's a bit of an arbitrary amount, but if you look at the really successful campaigns on Kickstarter, they're all mostly hardware campaigns, at least in the technology category. For software, it's not that easy. You know, they're not that big. So we decided to pick something that feels substantial, that we know that if we can sell 50 grand worth of Chameleon in a month, then there's a real business there. That you know, if we can do that every month, we'll be very happy. You know.
How do you? I mean, it's interesting to me. You know, when you hit the $50,000 threshold, do you just get like a PayPal notification that they put in your bank account?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a no harm, no foul kind of a thing. If we don't hit the 50, nobody gets charged. Yeah. We don't even get charged. Yeah. Nothing. You know, if we get 50 or over, then everybody who pledges gets charged the amount they pledged. Kickstarter takes a cut off the top, and then we get the rest. You know,
it's a good, like, I can't imagine. You know, I talked with a guy just last night. I was at an event, and he said, yeah, you know, he just finished raising his seed round, $1 million from a bunch of angel investors, actually here in Ottawa, and he said I got $1 million in the bank. I'm like, how does that feel? He's like, yeah, well, it feels pretty good. It's all spent, but you know, you got $1 million in the bank, and I just out of curiosity, I said, hey, you know, what's the hold on $1 million in your bank? Right? And he's, yeah, 5 days. Like,
really?
Like,
wow.
You know, it's like you've got it, but you can't touch it for 5 days. And right. You know, a third of this was from the actual institution. There were investors from the institution that he was actually banking with. Right. It's a Royal Bank up here in Canada, RBC, and they even had a 5-day hold on their own check. And I thought, wow, we are not moving fast enough in this world, are we? No. Not at all.
No.
So revenue-wise, how you got the Kickstarter? So how do you think that you can make money off of this? Charging individual users? What is like? It's early, I know, but what are you thinking? Yep. There's got to be a business here.
So there's two models essentially. One is the Google Play Store, right? So it's a home screen replacement application. It's the best home screen replacement app. It's the best home screen replacement app. Maybe a smaller name for that, but that you can find, you know, and there's many out there already. And looking at the ones that are out there, you know, individual companies have sold tens of millions, a couple of $1 million worth of their home screen replacement app. We believe we can capture that. And on top of that, though, we do believe that it's a valid starting point for manufacturers to differentiate their products. So I don't think Chameleon is enough by itself to completely say, wow, this tablet's different than another. I think it kind of needs to go a step deeper than that. But I think it's a perfect starting point for that. You know, and even Kickstarter helps us validate that.
Well, it does. You know, it's almost like proof. I mean, but it's beyond that. Is that you know, before, when you were out raising money for anything, you'd have to say you went to a VC or an angel. They would say, okay, go bring who's your biggest client,
Right.
and or who would be your biggest client, and you would say, you know, whatever. Right. Most of the time it was like a carrier or something. I'd say, okay, well, go get that person to buy, and then bring that person with you, and then you do that. You go and diligently spend 6 months building up a relationship. You'd bring you know, a carrier in with you, and you'd say, okay, they're going to buy, and then they'd say, okay, who's your second biggest customer? The other carrier. Right. Okay, go and sell that. Then we're in. And like, come on. Yeah. But when you start to look at this, a successful Kickstarter project, even if you don't hit your revenue thresholds or your desired investment, you got over 3,400 people that have put their hands up saying, I'm interested in this product. That is validation beyond anything that we were ever capable of doing before. Absolutely.
I mean, that's part of why we did it is just the statistics behind it. And to be able to show the growth curve and the amount of followers we gain and everything, and to take that to investment and say, you know what, on shoestring, on nothing, through a funding website and a video we made internally and the sweat we put into talking to people as much as possible, we raised at least $30,000. We got over 3,000 people to take money out of their own wallets and sight unseen say, yes, please, I want some. That's pretty powerful.
I don't know, like, you know, early in the days, so you and I are of the same era, right? Mm-hmm. The dinosaur era, as my kids would say. Were you around when dinosaurs were alive? But like 3,400 customers, and that's what I look at what you've done here with Kickstarter. 3,400 customers is a business, is an entire lifetime of a business when we were growing up, right? When we were in business, is that I ran Rove for a number of years, and we had 3,500 customers, and the company just sold, but was 10 years old, right?
Right.
In 2 weeks, you've matched that of people putting up their hands saying, yeah, we're interested in this product, we're going to put our money down on it. Like, that's the scale that we're talking about. It is unbelievable. So it is a serious amount of validation for you guys. So that's very cool.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? On top of that, I got to say, it's an amazing experience for the team. Just to see everybody in the team constantly on our little Kickstarter dashboard, and it's celebrating every percent. I mean, we celebrated when we hit 50%. You know, we celebrated the first day when we hit 2% in one day. We thought, oh my God, that's amazing. You know, sometimes we look for reasons to celebrate, sure. But yeah, it's an amazing, it's a good bonding experience for the team too.
Well, I like what you're doing here. Last question here, Gabor. When you, I mean, what do you hope happens from this? Is that you know, this is UI is playing more and more in UX, and I would say I don't know which is. Maybe they're in conjunction with each other. I don't know who's ahead or who needs to be ahead. You know, the experience has to be there. The UI usability has to be there. But when you kind of look forward, what do you, what as a company, as Teknision, you're building out this experience. What do you hope that this brings back into the company long term for you guys?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I mean, Teknision's been around for 10 years, and we are entirely professional services. You know. We eat, live, and breathe user experience design, you know, and then we create this product, and the product starts taking off. So we're starting even now with just 30 grand raised. We're starting even now to kind of feel like a two-headed beast. In that, are we a product company or are we a service company? You know, so we're looking at ways to mitigate that, but so that if you almost look at it as two separate things. I know what I want from Chameleon. I want it to be immensely popular on Google Play, and I want a couple of OEMs to pick it up as their signature experience on their devices. From Teknision, you know, it really validates that a small little company in Ottawa, you know, we can, we could create the playbook experience. We can bring almost hopefully a genre-defining experience for Android to market, have it sold, and have it distributed to millions of people. You know, those two things are just giant feathers in our cap because we really we need to stay on the leading edge of design development for our customers. And this is just more of a reason to use us kind of a thing.
It's funny because when you talk about writing a book, most authors don't get rich on the book. They hand it out as basically, like if I look at my bookshelf here, most of these are business cards, right? Except for guys like Stephen King. So this essentially is putting your mouth where your money is, or whatever that term is, right? Where it's quite literally put your money where your mouth is, at least, right? Yeah. Quite literally your business card. But the upside of it could be quite substantial.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so even just taking it from the Chameleon side, yes, there's huge money upside, but you're so right from the technician side in that it's one thing to show off a portfolio of here's some really great designs, but here's the data behind those. These designs have this many users, have been bought by these many people, has raised, sure, the playbook has, what, 2 million people using it or something like that, but if you calculate, even if they spent $200 each, right? So there's $400 million worth of product, that we've helped ship.
Well, you worked with Radian 6, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Radian 6, they're now part of Salesforce. So what we created is called the Engagement Console. And now that's used by literally thousands of marketers around the world for their social engagement. So really, it's the usage kind of data behind the things that we create, so that we're not just creating thoughts and fancy experiments or anything. We're creating stuff that people use, things of value, things that will actually help brands sell.
It's so important, and I think that this is a great calling card. So what can we do? Where do we drive people to? Do we drive people to just Teknision.com? Do we go to the Chameleon Lab? Everything's on your website, right?
Right, everything's on our website. I mean, if you want to start at Teknision, there's links to the Kickstarter program. There's links to the Chameleon Lab if you want to help us with testing, and there's links to all of the other things that we've done.
Yeah, and including this great series that you've got, which is We Are Embedded, and that's at weareembedded.com, right? That's where it is.
Yeah, please. I mean, everybody take a look. What that is just it's a focus on user experience design for the embedded layer. So that's anything, as I was saying before, anything with a screen and user experience. And the purpose of the site is to create a conversation between the people who use embedded devices, the people who sell them, who build them, who design for them, and just have a good conversation around it.
I love it. Gabor, always a pleasure, man. I wish you all the best with Chameleon. I know that I know that you don't do anything half-assed, especially around the UI UX. This is basically the complete level of knowledge that you've accumulated in the 10 years you've been running Teknision and beyond, and before that, kind of put into this experience. So you guys out there, go to go to Teknision. It's Teknision.com. Just do a search for Gabor Vida if you need to. You'll find him there. Go and support this. I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys who are out there. Is this something you'd buy? Obviously, it has to be something that you buy if you're an Android user. And if you're an iPad user, would you switch if you saw something like this? Would it put pressure on all the other operating system manufacturers or designers and developers to be able to build something like this? I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, untether@gmail.com. Go to Teknision.com. Go support them at Kickstarter, please. There's 20 days left, and probably fewer if you're watching this later on. And you know what? If it's in the future and you are enjoying Chameleon as an operating system or as an operating layer, let me know. Reach out. I might be 80, but video lives forever. Gabor, thank you, man, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's awesome. Thank you.
For you guys out there, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thank you so much for being a part of this, bringing this into your day, for listening or watching wherever you are. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. See you next time on Untether.tv. See ya. See ya, Gabor.
See ya.